Okay, we're recording. Hello, people.
Nice.
Today, Fanny Anzai interviews. I'm your host, Fanny Anzai, and our guest today is Travis Brown. Thank you very much, Travis, for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For those who do not know, Travis is the writer and director of the movie All Too Human that I have talked in some of my streams. He's gonna talk about the movie and some very exciting new projects he has. Is the When in Doubt with Peter Boghossian that have been interviewed here in the channel too, and the Woke Reformation with very amazing guests. Can you tell us a little bit about all of that?
Sure. I like to start by letting people know why I'm laying down. I'm
Yes.
not lazy. I just have debilitating back pain, so I have to spend most of my time like this, unfortunately. But yeah, I thankfully have a really good crew that helps me make these projects, and I end up taking a portable cot on set, so I can direct while laying down, much like this. But yeah, When in Doubt it's going to be my first feature length documentary and my second feature length film, and it's based largely around Peter and James' book How to Have Impossible Conversations. And I became friends with Pete ultimately, originally from reaching out to him about All Too Human. He connected me with some folks that ended up donating some money, which is really good. And especially over the last couple of years, I've become good friends with him, and he's been a great supporter of my work, and I've tried to support his work. And so, a friend of mine, a very progressive friend that I disagree a lot with, we both had the same idea. Like, we should make a film that tries to help people speak across ideological divides, and especially in the era of Trump and Brexit and all these problems, and social media making the problem even worse. So we've been doing that kind of here and there. The goal to get it to an hour and a half or 2 hour long film. Hopefully, we'll release it on Netflix or whatever. And the goal is to just pair people together or have people who are struggling with conversations and have them learn the techniques from the book and go through a process of improving their conversation. And then in addition to that, we'll have people like Daryl Davis and Pete and other people give advice along the way, and also help us understand at a deeper level like why we're divided in the first place. Like what are the evolutionary psychology reasons behind our differences. So that's that project that I'm kind of slowly whittling away at. And then the more soon to be released project is called the Woke Reformation, which will be a series of short episodes and some teasers and supplemental material. And that's really about the woke, social justice movement. I like to put that in quotes because I don't think it's actually aiming at social justice. I think it's based largely on far left ideology that comes from the universities, and then it ultimately comes from mostly these esoteric French philosophers, the postmodernists, as well as some neo-Marxist ideas. And you've talked to James, so I don't know if you guys talked about that, but it's based somewhat on he and Helen Pluckrose's book, Cynical Theories, and they're both in the
We have
series.
to have a new conversation about the cynical theories. We had one before about the how to have impossible conversation, but kind of it's just the continuation of it's one thing enables the other. The cancel culture and all the entryism that has happened in the universities is very related. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. So yeah, I'm lucky to have both he and Helen Pluckrose in the series, as well as Peter Boghossian and people like Douglas Murray and Nancy Rommelman, who's a journalist here and in New York. I just did an interview with Azra Nomani. She's uncovering critical race theory in schools and just that divisive ideology, and a few other people. So I'm really excited to release that. And yeah, hopefully, if people try to cancel me, I can just make more content about people trying to cancel me.
Well, nowadays apparently is one of the best things to get famous, no? Or at least what seems to be trending is go get canceled and then you go famous and get more. impulsion or more support after what happened with Gina Carano. Everybody talked about it, and then it goes on and on.
Totally. Yeah, so maybe it's not so bad.
That's a good way to try to promote yourself. Try to get canceled. So the movie All Too Human, Too Human, sorry, not Too Humans, All Too Human, you can download it on your links. We're gonna put in the descriptions, your Instagram or YouTube. I don't think the YouTube one works on in Canada because of
Oh,
copyright things. Yeah. So, but I have downloaded and watched, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. I really like the quote of the trailer. We I'm gonna link the trailer here in the end of the interview too, because I know that you can find the link online. Life is not the darkness that we experience, and I think that is when my husband and I we watched the movie and we had different perspectives and analysis, and he felt kind of frustrated. We're not going to spoil the end. Um, I felt more like it is very realistic, the representation of a suicidal person, right? And this people can see in the in the trailer. Uh, the only thing I think maybe was not that clear is that maybe we all, the title of the movie, To Be All Too Human, is that we all experience those dark moments and thoughts. And it's going to be very different, the outcome, the way we deal with it, which are the methods we use, if it's logic and reason, or if it's just emotions. And I think there is no such a dichotomy or yeah, you have to choose in between one thing or the other because humans are made of emotions and we still need the logic to make the best choices. And I think it is a little bit of this discussion nowadays. If we still need, that the thing that the movie portrays the entire time, it is more of maybe a false dichotomy that most of people have of life, that or you have emotions or you're a logic person, and we don't need to really separate that. uh,
sure.
can you talk a little bit of what was, you know what made you write? I know it is a little bit of a personal story. I would like you to dissect a little bit about it.
Sure. So you want me to talk about my personal motivations for making it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I struggled with pretty severe depression for most of my life up until about my mid-20s. Um, I've since become depressed again because of my back issue, but it's more situational depression. But before that, both my parents had struggled with depression, so I think there may have been a genetic component, but
Mm.
um, also wrapped up in my experience with depression was I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian home where most things were pretty controlled,
Is the
and
movie a realistic tale in some sense?
I mean, I like to call it a metaphorical semi-autobiography. So there are a lot of conversations that I took from my life that I put in the film, but I didn't do what the character did, like trying to kill
The
himself over
events
and
are
over
not
again.
realistic.
Right, correct. No, I mean, I certainly have come close to killing myself on multiple occasions, so there's a link there, but they're
About
not.
your father is what I'm more curious. I
Oh
don't
no,
want.
he's still alive. Yeah,
Okay.
that's very different.
Okay.
The part that was more similar was the Christian aspect. The mother in the film ends up finding religion and really latching onto it, and then kind of trying to force it onto her son. And
Hmm.
both of my parents did that to me. And when especially when I started to leave my faith behind, my whole worldview, all the values that I had just collapsed. Because I didn't really have any way to think about these things other than through a Christian perspective, whether it's meaning or purpose or overcoming depression. I mean, the solutions for those things, in my view, from Christianity are, um, especially fundamentalist Christianity, are just not very realistic and not very helpful. And so I was trying to sort of paint a picture of my experience of like leaving my faith, and then what do you grasp onto? What do you grab onto to give your life meaning, to feel like you have a sense of purpose? You know, where our values come from. So that's why I referenced Nietzsche quite a lot in the project and in the film. And one of the last things he was doing was he was going to write a 4-part series called The Revaluation of All Values, where he sort of deconstructed Christianity and then was going to offer something in its place. The only problem is that he wrote the first book, Antichrist, and then he went crazy and then died. So he didn't get to finish his project. But that's what I'm sort of alluding to in this film. You know, I'm going from a place of, you know, you losing faith and entering total nihilism to then finding it or creating something more. So yeah.
So is this like a little of an abandoned project now?
Which the
The
revaluation.
movie All Too Human, would it have a continuation? Would be a
Oh
series of movies?
no, I think it'll just be the one. Yeah, I don't know how I would pick it back up. I felt like the end was the end for me. You know.
Did you write it as a book originally?
No, I wrote it as a script. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And so, yeah, for me, I really like the way that it depicts well the suicidal behavior. And when we finish movies and we try to analyze this, like, is this, resonant with the reality or not? And I was like, of course, not the events happening in this short amount of time, but I thought it was a good way to represent a lot of individuals that sometimes are not even known by most of people. I personally know stories very similar to the movie itself, so it doesn't feel um, unrealistic to me that someone would try to attempt to suicide many times, because for people that do know suicidal people, it is natural behavior of people that enter that the suicidal thoughts and attempts. It is, of course, a disease. I don't try to say that it is natural but not normal. I try to say, because when I say natural, some people, oh, it's completely normal. It's like, not necessarily. It is that we expect, it's previewed in between us. We see it repeating, is still not normal, because the nihilistic position, and that is one thing I thought was well depicted for who is watching, to see it as a red flag. This is wrong and this is bad. And I think that is what the art sometimes, when I was reading a book recently about whatever general situation, and the mistakes are so evident, and I think it's for the writer to be able to read through it and be able to recognize them easily. And the same thing about the movie. When you see him behaving that way, is spending or putting so much effort to finish his life, and you or anybody, I believe, would be able to, or to, the movie is able to trigger the thought of, why is he not putting this much effort into doing something different, into going for the goods, into changing his life? And I think it is a great movie in the way that, if you go and analyze even that, it's like, oh, it could be unrealistic that he would try so many times. No, and I think it summarized, it made me so inspired. I actually wrote something. I'm not going to read about it, but I thought it was a good summary of many people's paths in life. But it is what I usually try to do when I do my Instagram live videos recent, talking about trying to motivate people and take people out of depression, is that every one of us, and that's what I think, again, is all too human, to go through depression, to go to existential crisis, to go to sometimes even think of finishing your own life. But it is something my mom used to say, while you still alive, the life is the most important thing. You still can change. So
Right.
that is the message. And I even think it is the message of the book, the movie itself. I would love to have to see people watching. And I talked to you about maybe we watch to you watch to talk and comment in the end, but I really want to see what you would say about do you think you deliver the message you intend to do?
Yes, but perhaps I tried to pack too much into it. I mean, there are, there are a lot of various philosophies sort of woven through it, largely from Nietzsche, but from other people like Bertrand Russell, who I'm a big fan of, and William James and a few other people. Uh, so, I hope that it has some rewatch value. I hope people will want to watch it again to sort of pick up on more. It's divided into three parts, and so I hope that people can kind of make that journey and kind of understand where I was going with it. The one thing I'll say about, I've had other people also, we did a private premiere back in 2017 of the film when I first finished it, and I had 120 people there or so, and I had a lot of people days or even weeks later tell me that they were still thinking about the film, which was great. But a particular friend of
I
mine.
woke up really pissed the next day.
Oh yeah, that's
I
funny.
watched, like I mentioned to you, we downloaded and we watched, and my husband was so tired. He
Mhm.
fell asleep in more than half, and I could not stop. I was like, I need to see where this is going. I'm so triggered by, so many thoughts coming, and I was writing in a completely different sheet of paper. I lost that.
Why were you
And
pissed off?
first, because I thought it was a straw man of the atheists,
Hmm.
the because the I lose my faith, I lose everything, and there is no meaning. It is a straw man that religious people like to make of
Sure.
atheists. And I thought was a little bit of reinforcing that thought.
Oh,
When it
interesting.
depicts the father as just like, oh, an atheist that just keeps saying that. I was like, yeah, no, I understand there are people like that, but I think you reinforced it. But that was not what I was pissed. The next day I was more pissed with the conclusion of the movie itself. But then I started looking back and I was like making that analysis of like how realistic it is by my experience as a doctor in emergency room to see people coming back and many times the same patient, sometimes with injuries that are not that would not actually kill, but sometimes take attention of the family. And my analysis was always about how they are able to do that much and not care about the people around. And that's why I think there is a difference into there is definitely a pathology into that nihilism of not caring not about yourself but not caring about your family anymore and enduring yourself what hurts so much other people. But I think that type of empathy it takes a lot of thinking, takes a lot of philosophy, and sometimes even stupid events. I actually think I only got to empathize of the fear of losing my life that my parents had once when I dreamt of dying and I was out of my body, those out of body experience, and I would see everybody in my funeral crying and suffering so much. I was like, but we see this all the time. Why don't you think of it? That was, I thought, was my dream that triggered me to understand as like why my mom keeps saying, "Be careful," and that all that sometimes is boring and difficult, and why? And like, no, because they will really suffer. And thinking of
Sure.
life and death, I was like, well, the person that dies, whatever it goes, is for me is just like where are you gonna go when you die? Well, I would answer with where were you before you were born?
Sure.
That is a good
Right.
question. So I guess it's that same place. and you know how much I cared about being alive before I was born? Probably nothing, because I did not have my brain to. So it goes back to the importance of being alive every time you think more of those things. And even in some points when I was questioning that, my mom being religious, she would be offended and mad of me questioning those, to have those thoughts, And I was like, no, we should talk more about life and death, even to get prepared for those moments. And it's still a little bit of a taboo of a lot of subjects when it comes to religious families. Uh, and I feel that in my personal experience because
Yeah,
I still have,
likewise.
religious
But
family.
I wanted to just finish a point I was going to make about one of my friends who saw the film and then came to me weeks later and expressed that that he felt he had a friend who had committed suicide by one of the methods in the film, like within a week of him seeing the film, and then he watched the film and then he felt like he could understand what his friend was going through better, and so that really felt reinforced what I was trying to do, because I had gone through those things myself, and some people, because it's a dark comedy, so some people can maybe take it the wrong way or um, think that I'm making fun of suicide or something like that, which I'm certainly not. But that's sort of the struggle of the film, is that the main character is really not very likable, right? He's not a very positive, fun-loving guy, and a lot of people complain about that. But I think, to your point, I mean, that's just how people are when they get to the place where they really want to kill themselves. I mean, I know because I've been there, and so it's for a purely entertaining film. I think a lot of people might not enjoy the main character, but I hope, if nothing else, to give a window into what that experience is like, because that was certainly my goal. And to the
I
atheist
actually
point,
thought that was a technique. When we try to make a villain or someone likable or dislikable, and that I thought was a little bit on the push of your writing or the direction to try to make him disliked by us a little bit. Or
not
that was
really. I was really just focused. I wasn't really focused on creating a protagonist or antagonist. I was just trying to be true to my own
Mhm.
experiences and represent those in the best way I could. Because I think, like you said, I think a lot of people don't understand that if they haven't gone through a severe depression
Yeah.
themselves, um,
Yeah,
especially for a long time.
I actually think it is a little selfish from the depressed people to think that they are the only ones to feel depression in life and focus too much on their own situation. In the same way, the people that never really experienced deep depression, to look at them and don't see them as sick, because I do understand there is a level, like I mentioned, there is a level to not care or don't want to fight for it anymore, but then you still have that limit of the social. I still care about someone, and when you lose that, you become that bitter person you depicted in the movie well.
Yeah,
But
I would say
it
I think
is
that
a little bit for the people. I think it is more educated for the people that could be depressed watching that, even to see that he is being disliked for good reasons, because he is actually in a situation that he needs help and he just keeps
right.
refusing and trying to do the other, everything different, objectively bad to him, because that's a little bit what I talk about too, is individualism and objectivism. All the choices were wrong, were equivocated, and he still not recognize that. But I love the way that the not I was going to mention about production wise. My husband mentioned like he loves the transitions with some
Oh,
objects and transition, but I really like the other hint that for me it is a little bit or more to be a common trait of all of us, the existential crisis and the seeking for meaning in life,
right.
that the event sometimes he was encountering people that were going through those paths, like reading things that they were trying to find the way, so they also were and that's maybe the reason why, unhappily, he didn't find in the movie anybody that could give him good answers for his questions, and he keeps on the seeking on this meaning outside. So that just makes me think again. I wrote more specific about the meaning of life after watching this morning the trailer, because I just last week I came and said, like, look, life is difficult for everybody, and there's no recipe to be happy. It's more situational. We're gonna have to think. It is hard, and if anybody is telling you life is amazing, they're probably gonna try to sell you something. They're getting. So I think it represents that path in a summary of, like, you can choose, you can do that. I just felt like I mentioned to you before that maybe the message that is more powerful, the movie, it was comprised in a short time in proportionally to the entire event of going through the trying to kill you himself. But I totally love. I might watch a couple of times again because I love thinking, and people go check out All Too Human. And when are the other projects coming?
Oh, I just wanted to circle back to one thing you
Yeah,
said.
that's
'Cause
fine.
initially you said you said this depression is like a disease, and then that people who are depressed are often being selfish, and I think that may be true to a degree, but I think that's part of the disease. I think that
Oh yeah.
it's part of it to be really self-absorbed. I mean, that just comes with. I don't want it to sound so negative, I guess, is what I'm getting at, is that when I mean, I've gone through that with my back problem. I've been in so much pain that I couldn't sleep, and it's really hard to care about other people in that moment. And so I just want to give sort of a softer landing for people who are depressed and think that we're insulting them or something, because
No,
I don't
no
think,
way. Yeah,
yeah, I don't think
but
that's
it's
true. I
good to
just,
circle that back.
yeah, I want to make it clear that that's natural to, when you're severely depressed and in pain, or whatever it is, to really just focus on, because it's a life and death situation. It's like an ongoing life and death situation. So it's totally understandable for people to be in their own world, and that's what I tried to portray in the film. So, and I also wanted to say I am an atheist, so it's interesting that that you felt like it was a straw man or something. Because I think ultimately I was trying to just be as honest as possible about this situation. Like I think people should be more serious about the ideas of meaning and purpose, um, and I just objectively don't think there is anything worth living for that is extrinsic to ourselves, and that's what I was trying to get across. That it's about developing that sense of meaning internally, and finding community and all those other things. But I think it's important to be honest about reality, and so that's really what I was trying to do, and showing that the father character was an embodiment of nihilism without the sense of meaning, without the self work that is required to move beyond that. And that's also sort of tied up in the title, All Too Human. The idea is that you want to move beyond that. Nietzsche came up with this concept of the Übermensch, someone who does derive his own values from his sense of self and his own exploration, and so it's really about moving past that place of being all too human. So that's really why I chose the title, and what I was hoping people would think about. Although it's somewhat esoteric philosophy, so not
No,
everyone's
I
going to get
actually
that.
think that is much more realistic, but we face it as esoteric because it's difficult to sometimes justify why you would be an individualist, why, and I think that is this again. It comes to, it even says on the trailer, you can that you the past doesn't determine what you're going to be, your ancestors, and that is very true. So that is one thing I have mentioned in my recent videos when people talk about meaning life, and I try to say, like, look, if you think about reason for you to be alive, would you reduce your meaning in life to fulfill just the will of your parents to have a child,
Right.
and that's all? So
Right.
you can choose it's not you. Everybody that is looking to find meaning in their lives outside of themselves, in someone else, in a relationship, in a profession, in a job, they will be lacking that meaning while
Right.
they still looking outside. Like you mentioned, it is something inside. It's probably like the 42. 42 is the meaning of life, but it's more of an answer that you need to go through inside yourself for sure. And
Right.
that way you need to know yourself. The knowing yourself is like what makes you happy, and go for it. And sometimes we realize that a little late,
Right.
because we made that question a little late after we made choice. And it is hard to change, but it was hard to beginning.
Right.
In the beginning was already hard. So we always can make that change. We can, or work with whatever we have from that point, then to quit. The quit is not the answer. And I think you're very successful in your movie. I really enjoyed it. People go check out. And I probably will not make all the questions, because you can see that I wrote a bunch of things. But because you mentioned, to circle back on not trying to sound that we're trying to mock people that are depressed or suicidal,
Right.
and definitely not, because I have heard that criticism before when I interviewed Raka, and he mentioned he has tried to commit suicide before. And I kind of a giggle. I was really uncomfortable with the
Sure.
conversation. And because I also edited that video a lot, he wanted me to cut some parts. It sounded like I was being insensitive, and some people point out. And I even came back later in another video mentioning I have myself been depressed a couple times in life, and on the edge of committing suicide myself,
Right.
uh, before becoming an atheist, or in the period of becoming atheist, but more because having trouble of social acceptance with all my
Sure.
changes, my beliefs. And then I felt that I was empty, as everybody would tell me, oh, if you don't have
Mhm.
God, you don't have meaning, you don't have purpose, until
Yeah.
I could answer myself those questions. So I actually think we here, me, you, and everybody that speaks about it, with some intention to help other people that are in this moment. So I actually want to read for you the thing I wrote, because it might not even be good, because I didn't read before, but
Oh,
it's something
please.
about the meaning of life, and we can finish it. So I actually gave the name The Meaning of Life in the end. Uh, and it's thinking of your character. Why should someone put so much effort in killing himself instead of changing what's wrong? Because the religion's mindset thought you were made like this or that, and made you believe you can't change. But we all can. And we all experience frustrations on ourselves and others, even more on the closer people. Existential crisis more as we get older, and we have more failures and less accomplishments. The movie shows that too. The other people crossing and trying to help him didn't have the answers either. Many of them were, in fact, in the current moment of their disastrous encounter, trying to figure it out. The meaning of life. It's not outside, it's the meaning of our lives to fulfill. Is the meaning of our lives to fulfill the will of our parents to have a child? Have you found out we built the meaning ourselves, and we're never gonna find it if we keep looking outside? So yeah, I kind of wrote
That was
this. It's
great.
not perfect yet, but it is pretty much like a good summary of what I think you wanted to deliver, and I hope you you did,
Yeah,
and
that was
other
great.
people
I
get that
enjoyed it.
too.
Yeah, and
So I'll finish the conversation here, the
I,
recording, and
I just wanted to say one more thing, if you don't
yes,
mind,
sure,
which is
please.
because it ties into religious identity and all those things, and what you said about feeling empty. I've never felt so empty as when I was a Christian. That's when I felt the most empty and lost, because I was always told that, well, Jesus is what fills that void in your life, right? God is what fills that void in your life, and without that, you will be empty and lost and alone. I I never felt fulfilled as a Christian, and it wasn't until I left that behind and went through this process of self-development that I don't feel that ever anymore. I don't ever feel empty or lost or anything like that. So I just wanted to leave that as an encouragement for anyone leaving behind their faith, that in
Oh,
my
that
opinion, it's better.
I agree with you. In fact, I would say to go check out the conversation I had with Lawrence Cross, because we hit that conversation a lot about meaning of life, about cosmology, and the how big is the universe for us to believe that there is a imaginary being that made everything just for us. That is kind of a little arrogant and silly.
Sure.
And for me, the meaning of life, like you mentioned, before I would attempt suicide and try to quit this, because we always believe there is something beyond, like this supernatural paradise you're going to live forever is better than whatever shitty thing you're living here. And definitely was after I became an atheist that I said I would never try to take my life away ever again, because the life itself, to realize that all this immense universe we are living in, this moment we have to be alive, is so precious. Why I would quit this is such a gift. That's why it's called present, huh?
Right.
So yeah, that's all. And thank you very much for coming, and I see you guys soon. And you want to let people know how they can support, follow, and help you in your other projects?
Sure. Well, the website for this film is alltoohuman.film, so you can go there to check it out. And then for my other projects, I'm still working on the platforms, but people can either follow me on YouTube or Twitter. I think YouTube is at Become the Signal. And actually, I think that's true for both Twitter and YouTube. I can give you the links. I'm bad
Will
with
be
those.
here on the
Yeah.
descriptions.
But yeah, if
Thank
people follow me on Twitter, then they can find all. I will be posting all the videos and stuff there. So
that's Thank you very much, and here, let's go. Bye.
bye bye.